3 weeks off. Last week of March and the first 2 weeks of April probably was the best time to take off. I didn't take a short vacation. I flew to Europe and spent 10 days in Greece and 5 days in Ireland. My daughter was studying abroad in northern Greece, was what really sent me over there. But hindsight coming back, I had a long list of phone calls to return in the middle of April, and I'm like, you know, I didn't plan this based on weather, nor did I expect the weather that we had this spring, but or for the last year, for that matter. But I think my timing was just about perfect. So maybe I've gotten lucky with a few things over the years. But for those of you that do know me or don't know me, I've worked for Benton County for 30 years, actually 30 and a half. Just a quick reminder or information, but Benton County is a little bit larger than some other counties across the state. Just a quick kind of general thought process is it's 24 miles wide, 30 miles tall. So you got from Highway 21 on the west all the way to just east of Atkins, Walford, Urbana, kind of on the east side. From the south to the north, being 30 miles, you got south of Blairstown, where I was stuck last night in Davis Creek, and Mount Auburn, Urbana area. But Benton County has 1,235 miles of secondary roads to take care of that we have to address all of the wonderful climate about. 215 miles of that is paved, 925 miles is surfaced with rock, and about 90 miles of dirt. And this spring, I think maybe 10 of those 925 miles didn't have one frost boil on them. I think most springs will find a few here and there, and you can attack them. But this particular spring, it started at the one end of the mile and went to the other. Looking through some research, as well as going back in construction standpoints, when Iowa tried to come out of the age of dirt roads to get into rock surfacing, the way they constructed those roads back then is they basically had no ditch on either side of what was a path. And so they just started kind of digging what we call a ditch and took that soil that was there, threw it on top of the road, probably tried to compact it. At that time, we're talking horse era, even early ages, some mechanical stuff. So the stuff that good black soil that Iowa was famous for growing great crops is really not the type of soil a person wants to build a road with. It likes to hold moisture, doesn't dry out well. All that stuff is kind of what's in the bottom of that road right now. And from a weather standpoint, I know I heard last month that between June 1st of 2018 to June 1st of 2019, since they've been keeping track of weather records, it's the wettest 12 months ever in history of the state of Iowa. So what do we have to compare it to? 2018, 2019. It's kind of the new base to try to figure out from a moisture standpoint. But we had a very cold winter, harsh winter that I think drove the frost in the ground at least 4 feet in most places. It might have been deeper in some others. Maybe some well insulated areas wasn't quite that deep, but we've been accustomed on average probably in the 36 to 42 inch range of the frost. So we had frost that was driven down a little bit farther this winter. And then instead of it being all snow this winter, we had occasional rain showers that seemed to just sit there on top. And up until 2 weeks ago, did summer just finally arrive to get some nice warm weather to help dry these roads out. The frost boils, as we call them, that we've been fighting, we've had some areas in the county where we have taken, normally you can spread a load of rock and kind of dress over them and they'll kind of dry themselves out after a week or two. Had a couple down by Blairstown. I'm looking at you, Dave. It's kind of ironic, but there are 2 spots I know not far from Blairstown that probably, I don't know if I want to say the worst, because every time I've gone out and looked at some, I find one that looks worse than the one I seen before, or equivalent to. And it really didn't matter whether I was in the northwest corner, southeast, southwest, northeast, and it was across the state. But I know there was a spot down by Blairstown where we hauled 12 loads of rock in about a 500-foot stretch one day, and 24 hours later, you wondered if we'd ever done anything there back in April. And so, knowing how that one was attacked and how we've had some success in the past, it's like, is it practical that I can go attack all of these out there? And we have attempted to try to keep butter graders running. County has split the county up into 13 little districts, and we've got 13 of those motor graders housed around the county, and an operator that runs those. And we don't run around the clock, but even through today, we're trying to probably continuously blade 15 to 20 miles a day, just trying to shape that road back up, try to build the center up so that you've got it crowned so that when it does rain, it does try to run off of the road instead of soak in. But the way this good old Iowa topsoil that's 1 foot, 2 foot, 3 feet underneath that road bed just keeps holding all that moisture, and even a single heavy load is going across there, instead of having a nice A-shaped frame that you're trying to get with the roadway, it starts flattening out. Each one of those blade guys has about 75 miles to blade, so it's not something that can be redone each and every day. It's about every 4 or 5 days at a minimum before they can get back to the same road they had just been on before. David asked me, even driving over here, did I go over my budget this past year with our activities, and I have learned over the years with although there's things that need to be spent on that from a county perspective, we got to watch that budget very closely, and in the event of going over it, the state has repercussions when you spend more than what you were appropriated to. So fortunately with the county's accounting system that they have in place right now, it's something I can follow very easily versus some old days of pen and paper and trying to figure things out as things are happening quickly. But some things, it seems like, in the secondary roads do have a tendency to even themselves out as the year goes on. Maybe you get a bad winter, you will see some impacts on the heavy equipment and a need to replace them. Sometimes Mother Nature tends to be a little bit kinder in a different climate or a different part of the season, and you're able to address that a little bit later. Right now this year, we are still hauling rock to those rural areas. If I got anyone that's traveled in the Keystone, Van Horn area, I haven't rocked it like I usually do by this time. We're still attempting to do that right now. But we have found over the years about 150 ton of rock per mile annually. There are some roads that carry more traffic than others. Obviously need to be addressed more heavily, and you add some more rock. But there's a few other roadways in the county where maybe it's only got 2 or 3 residents on it, and it doesn't have much truck traffic or vehicle traffic on there. Sometimes those roads can go 2 or 3 years without having to add rock to them, and so that's kind of a balancing act. This year I'm finding that we're rocking the entire system at about 200 tons per mile. And I had spent about $500,000 more on rock through the 1st of July than what I have in past years. And because we're still hauling very heavily, I think I spent $500,000 on rock the first week of June, just because invoices came in past our deadline. Our fiscal year actually ends the end of June, so to get everything processed, sometimes that middle of June is a deadline date where all the invoices have to be turned in and processed for the fiscal year. So the first half of July can sometimes be a little bit aggravated and a little misleading because of some additional expenses. But it certainly looks like right now that I think the county's gonna probably spend probably between that $500,000 and $750,000 more on rock than we traditionally do. But I think that because the county attacks, for the most part, each roadway mile annually, as opposed to picking a segment of the county and say, let's really rock it heavy and not come back for 3 years, that we are better off in that perspective than some other adjoining counties who do it the other way. Fortunately, we have a lot of rock quarries nearby, either in Benton County or just adjoining counties. But I hesitate to say quality, but the material that's there, some of it does break down a little bit more readily with our freeze-thaw cycles that we see. Freeze-thaw meaning the times in the wintertime where it gets above freezing and then gets below freezing, and when there's water trapped in that rock, a lot of times as it freezes and thaws out, it'll break that rock up into smaller pieces quickly. I wasn't fully convinced of that, but I'll take a rock road for example. I go up there and say I'm gonna put what the equivalent is of an inch of rock across it, and I do that this year, and I do that next year, and I do that the following year. My math would say that if I went out there at the end of that 3 years and I just dug a hole, I think I'd find maybe 3 inches of rock. What happens is that stuff breaks down, turns to dust, some of it gets blown around, and you'll find 90% of the time in a lot of those places it's not more than probably an inch thick. And granted, the way that rock breaks down, as well as some of the other material that's around there, helps glue it together, and it works well to support traffic until you've got a really wet year, and at the wrong time. If we could have perfect weather, including Iowa winters, it would be nice for the springtime for it to warm up slowly and kind of melt the snow uniformly. But when you get a lot of snow that gets piled into the ditches and sits there to thaw out, you've got part of the road that's got cold snow and cold ground sitting next to it all the time. You got the sun beating down on the top surface that you drive on. It's starting to thaw out, and so it thaws down to a certain point, and then you've got so much cold temperature around it on the sides and underneath it. When you get that rain like we got this spring, it didn't have anywhere to go but to come right back out the top. And where you find those areas where you probably only had an inch of rock, it helped push that soft, silty black dirt up that unfortunately all of us that travel on a rock road got the opportunity to clean that vehicle way more times than we wanted to this spring particularly. And even when we went out there and thought it looked like we made some improvements, and granted I think we have made improvements when we were doing that, first vehicle that went by it looked just as bad as it did 2 hours ago before we were on. I'm hoping, like I say, with this warm weather that we're finally going to get ahead of things, but I do know driving this spring all the way till even this morning, it isn't uncommon for me to find still a frost boil. Granted, some of them might not be much bigger than this table that we're eating at today. They're certainly not a couple 100 feet in length like we've had some areas, but they're getting smaller and smaller. But I think that coupled with both Mother Nature and the type of precipitation and the amount of precipitation we've gotten over the last 12 months, as well as the way we just built the roads, certainly getting out of the dirt and getting to a rock surface was a benefit at that time.